For the last year or so of my life, I've been utterly consumed by a little story called One Piece. The thrilling highs and tearful lows of this manga took me from someone who never read books to using every free second I had to flick through a couple of chapters. Along the way, meeting its absolute litany of colourful characters. And something that kept so many of those characters so iconic to me is, of course, the existence of Devil Fruit. Very quick rundown, Devil Fruits give the eater a power of either an element, a creature, or something else. And in a war-torn place like the Grand Line, they're a handy bit of kit to have. But I don't live in the Grand Line. I live somewhere far worse. England. So I got to thinking, in the average domestic 9-to-5 life I assume most of us live, which of these fruits would actually provide any benefit to its running? Would some even make it worse? Today I will answer that very question. Welcome aboard my journey to rank every devil fruit based on real-life application. Quick note before we jump in, these are vaguely rated into average, good and bad. There is a bit of ordering within those subsets, but in terms of individual placement relative to each other, it's not an exact science. You'll see when we get going, just sit back and see if you agree. Oh, and we're only doing canon fruits. Sorry, Lily. So to kick off this spectrum of useful to outright detrimental, I'm going to go straight down the middle. And with one fell swoop, I think I can put most of the Zoan type or animal power fruits here. Though superhuman strength or speed come in handy when faced with other pirates or marines, in a regular life I can't see a lot of application other than a job at the circus or being able to carry all your shopping from the car in one go. I did say most of them though, not all. So right in the middle, here is your full list. I'll visit specific ones that fall outside of this later on. And let's work our way downwards first, not quite making your life worse, but not necessarily making it better either. And I think just short of neutral falls Wapol's Munch Munch fruit. While it seemingly allows for inhuman appetite, I can't think of a single time I wanted to turn a part of my body into the kebab I just ate, and I can't help but feel you'd always be hungry. I'd also place the Kilo Kilo and Ton Ton fruits around here. While not detrimental, I can't think of many reasons I'd need to become heavier at will outside of being caught in a runaway hot air balloon, something I can't say I run into on a regular basis. The Slow fruit of beloved character Foxy also lands in the Useless Valley, as I don't think I've ever wanted something to go slower in my life. Maybe saving me from a car crash with some quick reaction times, but when your power can be replaced by looking both ways, you're not scoring high. I'd also like to place the Ripple fruit in this territory, a fruit so arbitrary I can't even think of a joke for this part, so let's just wave goodbye to that one.
Get it?
While I initially had hope for the Age fruit, being able to keep yourselves or others youthful into old age, the impermanence of the effects, meaning you'll just revert anyway, makes me feel like it doesn't quite qualify as good. A nice temporary relief, possibly, but too limited for my liking. And fellow Supernova Eustace Kid finds his fruit, the Magnet fruit, in the Useless Valley too. Sure, if you drop a tiny screw on the ground, you could find it easier, maybe even do a spot of metal detecting, though it's safe to assume this works like real magnets, so you're not going to be sucking up any gold, maybe just the odd bit of spare change out of people's pockets. Unique traversal is a point that will be covered later down the line, but that generally involves efficiency. This does not apply to Senor Pink's Swim fruit. Being able to swim in solid ground is a neat party trick, but assuming it's just as tiring and the same speed as regular swimming, no amount of vertical travel would make that worth it for me. Not strictly bad, just not much of a use to anyone. And while you're in the ground, I doubt you'll be getting much use out of the Push fruit, which allows you to easily reshape specifically the ground. Maybe fix a pothole if you're feeling generous, but otherwise don't bother eating this one. Another form of getting around I think you could do without is the Barrier fruit, which may not initially sound like a mode of transport to the unfamiliar, but you'd be wrong. Along with force fields, you can use the barriers to make stairs and even balls to roll around in safe and sound, though none of these really stand out to me as worthwhile. They're at the least neat. Voodoo magic in the form of the straw fruit is also rarely applicable to the average life, and while being able to send the pain of stubbing my toe into a straw doll might be handy, pain is an important thing. Without it, we'd have a lot more unpredictable deaths and a lot less emos, and that's not a world I want to live in. I like throwing stuff into a bin rather than just taking it over as much as the next guy, but that will not convince me I need the Mark fruit in my life. Not only do you need to have touched the target before you get the perfect aim, making it even useless for edge cases like war and archery, but you also have something in common with Van der Decken, a curse I wish upon no one. It's currently not known what the Glug fruit fully does, but it is said to turn the user into a liquor human, so while I can't really rank it good or bad, I'm willing to bet at least it makes you great at parties. One that almost snuck into the positive end of this scale is the bind fruit, as any potential jokes about the kinkiness of it all is countered by the fact that the bindings seem to be incredibly tight and have no instance of them being broken. Maybe just stick to plastic handcuffs. And I think it's fair to say that the bona fide most useless, non-life affecting fruit goes to Tony Chopper's human fruit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you, I, and most other people already have human powers, and without being able to pop a rumble ball to take us any further than that, this lands at the very centre of the scale, though I do wonder what I would look like in Kung Fu Point. And let's get the other two human fruits out of the way, Model Buddha and Model Monk, which seemingly just make you a guy but big and strong. Just go to the gym, man. You don't need to turn to religion. This also applies to the muscle and strong fruit. Feel free to get all big and strong, I just don't see it having a huge impact in your life one way or the other. And that rounds up our fine tier. And let's follow in the trend that Wapol set and work our way down into the ones that are straight up bad. And we start to enter straight up inconveniences with the smooth fruit. I hold a lot of things, and the thought of a state of full-body Butterfingers sounds like a recipe for more shattered mugs than any amount of berries could pay for. We also find the sick fruit around this tier, applicable for little more than getting out of work if I'm being generous. Safe to say I am not done with the sickness. If you want to get out of work in a bit more of an extreme way, we also have the bomb and pop fruit, allowing you to detonate any part of your body. Again though, very little benefit in day-to-day life, so these ones are just gonna bomb in our ranking too. An unfortunate placement in the bad batch, we find the tone fruit, used by the abomination known as Scratchman-a-Poo. From what I can tell, while you can turn your body into instruments, it doesn't appear to give you any musical talent. And any music you do make can be a bit destructive. Just buy a ukulele from Facebook Marketplace and learn Riptide like the rest of us. No need for magical fruits. While the age fruit had promise, the ripe fruit very much does not. Being able to make stuff older, even to the point where it just decays, is utterly pointless. Your fruit isn't good to eat yet? Just wait a couple days, man. And while we're on the topic of missed potential, the pump fruit initially seemed to just encourage confidence in its targets, but on closer inspection it seems to just make anyone you use it on more willing and capable to fight, making you little more than a human Stella Artois. You know why genies don't let you wish for love? Because it would probably work like the love fruit. Boa Hancock's part power, part curse. This fruit makes anyone who finds you attractive or has, quote, lustful or dirty thoughts turn completely to stone. While it can be reversed by the fruit's user, the awkwardness of potentially just walking down the street and suddenly someone across the road turns to stone puts it in the bad bunch. Or maybe that's just wishful thinking. Time travel is awesome, right? Wrong, especially when it only works one way, like in the case of the time fruit, allowing you to send yourself and others into the future, but never the other way. This doesn't even give you the benefits of being able to bet on stuff you know the outcome of, like sports or stocks, but does nothing of use, I'll be real. Bad fruit. Now tell me, dear viewer, how often do you find yourself wishing to enslave masses to do your bidding? If you answered ever, you have a problem, but you would love the hobby, soul, and shadow fruits. While in concept, being able to control a huge horde would absolutely help you smoothen out your daily jobs, one requires you to turn people into toys and make everyone who's ever known them forget about them, one requires you to extract people's lifespan and put it into inanimate objects, and the other requires you to steal people's souls and place them into corpses, killing the people whose souls were stolen as soon as they touch the sunlight. As a fan of ethics, that's gonna land a lot of them in the dregs. Do you often find yourself having your entire body shattered open? No? Didn't think so. Which lands the egg fruit here, allowing you to survive fatal blows, sure, but also with every hatching turning you further and further into a chicken. It is also supposedly an endless cycle, which is horrifying on its own. So okay, how about we make our body totally unshatterable with the twinkle fruit, turning our whole body into diamond. Congrats! Now you can't move while in this form, and you can't even create diamonds, just turn into them. So I guess if you want to sell yourself to a pawn shop and escape, might be a solid income strategy, but my money is not on it. Okay, fine. Let's just make ourselves really big with the huge fruit. Great! You want to fit in a building? Perhaps a car? Hell, maybe even just your own bed? Then using this fruit will do nothing for you. At best, maybe you could use it to finally be 6 foot tall. Or you could buy some platform boots. Continuing on making your body useless, there are few daily chores I encounter that would benefit from being able to turn my body into any sort of weapon, which unfortunately lands Dazbones' Dice fruit, Zala's Spike fruit, Sharon Guru's Wheel fruit, Inazuma's Snip fruit, and Baby Five's Arms fruit here too. As much as it will break her poor heart to hear she isn't useful. Wait, no, stop, no! And speaking of fruits that are so bad I could die, the Dark fruit and Tremor fruit, which make up Blackbeard's arsenal, and of course formerly Whitebeard's, have minimal application in real life. You can seemingly use the shadows to grab stuff, so maybe that could be handy. And an earthquake could make life easier if you work in demolition, but neither quite hits the mark for me in a world without the 4 emperors. There is very little to be said about the rust fruit. It lets you rust metal and make it fragile. You do not need to do that. Ever. Next up, 2 fruits that revolve around merging with minerals, the Stone fruit and Island fruits, also in my mind serve little purpose. Being able to become and control huge hunks of rock is just asking for trouble. If nothing else, you could make Mount Rushmore talk, and that'd be really funny to see hit the headlines. But a single good bit does not a good fruit make. And a fruit I thought would be more useful than it turned out to be is the Wash fruit. Perhaps you're picturing something that lets you produce soap or something, and so was I. But nope, it lets you wash and hang out to dry people. While possibly useful to those who frequently attend anime conventions, the sheer body horror of it all just prevents me from considering it worth a positive ranking. It does apparently wash evil out of people's hearts too, so I suppose if you have a friend who's a bit of a dick, a single use couldn't hurt. An undoubted bottom tier fruit is the infamous stick fruit, wielded by everyone's least favourite thing to ever exist, treble. I do not want to produce any more mucus than the normal human body does, but at least it's flammable, so if I encountered someone who does, I could incinerate them at a moment's notice. This was a tough one to place, but despite its potential, I feel the brain fruit has to go here. We live in an age of constant bombardment of information, true and false. So not only being able to intake it all, but to have your head physically grow as the 6,000th conspiracy theory gets added to your mental storage until you look like a fucking freak. I don't know what else to say. It's not worth it. You're already smart, you have great potential, you do not need a grotesque head to prove it. And speaking of what gets you a big brain, books! Which is quite convenient as the buck fruit also sucks. Seemingly you might be able to put a buck over your head and be able to see as if you were in the world, but that also may only apply to the user's original works, so Your Name fanfic writers by all means eat that up. But for most people, it's going in the trash. Looping back round to terrible liquids introduced from Treble, the Venom fruit sadly does not give you a gay symbiote. Instead, it lets you produce poison, an act I have never once wanted to do. Sure, it grants immunity to poison, but I don't find myself accidentally or deliberately consuming any sort of poison. If anything, it might just make you immune to getting drunk. And another round of bad goo comes along with the infamous Mag fruit. While we'll get into warming stuff up soon, molten rock with a resume of destroying whole cities and evading Tom Scott is not something I can see adapting to regular living. Not everyone needs to punch a hole through the son of history's greatest pirate. I don't even know if Vim has a son. There's just no need. A rare case of transportational fruit landing in the negatives comes from Bellamy's Spring fruit, letting you launch yourself around with newly springified limbs. While cats and anime characters, and indeed anime cats, or hyenas I suppose, do always land on their feet, I can only see this resulting in an immediate concussion from first use, and said use would also shatter the ground you used it from, so all in all, more destructive than the travel benefits are worth. Right, I think I've got all the negativity out of my system. I think it's finally time to address some fruits that would actually be useful if you ate them in real life. You know what can be difficult sometimes? Getting an animal to like you. Be it your friend's cat or a bear you've stumbled upon in the woods, buddying up can be hard, so Otama's millet fruit would most certainly come in handy, also allowing the animal you feed your millets to obey your every command with just one snack. Want to teach your dog to roll over? You're thinking too small. Teach your dog to do your laundry. The sky is the limit so long as it doesn't take opposable thumbs. That's unless you have a pet monkey, of course. A similar ability is shared by the whip fruit, allowing you to take control over anything, inanimate objects included, to do whatever you wish with just one strike of your whip. It's also much kinkier. And hey, is the world just a little too loud for you sometimes? Well, thanks to today's sponsor, the Calm fruit, you can create a little bubble of peace around you for if the neighbours are getting some construction work done, or if your friends rant about why Sanji is definitely stronger than Zoro is running a little longer than your patience can handle. It is said that with great power comes great responsibility, and nowhere is that more evident than the Clear fruit, letting you turn yourself totally invisible. Now you could use this to get into places for free, win at hide and seek, or avoid any potential social interaction wherever you go. That, or you could do what Absalom did. Do not do what Absalom did, please. And that same responsibility should be used with the Glare fruit, as while yes, it would be great to be able to keep an eye on things for miles around, make sure someone is travelling safe, keep an eye on cooking while you're in another room, check traffic, spy on your opponent in a game of Battleship, the lot. Just don't go spying on anyone underneath their clothes, or worse yet, their skin. Though you may be good at locating things like tumours, so let's reiterate, glare responsibly. While not as in demand as back in the caveman days, the flame fruit providing at-will access to warmth and the ability to cook stuff, I guess, has its uses. At the least it means you'll never have to own a lighter, at most it means you're making pancakes in the palm of your hand. Both are decent benefits in my book. And if you can't be trusted around an open flame, there is always the heat fruit if you just prefer to be able to be warm. Feels like it'd be handy in the winter. And while we're on the subject of food, Kuzan's ice fruit would presumably save your need for a freezer, instead just letting you blast your perishables into a state of Walt Disney-like frostiness. And hey, maybe you can even just keep your drink cool in your hand. Sometimes it's the little things that count. And after you're done with the food, never buy dish soap again with the power of the bubble fruit, allowing you to summon suds wherever you'd like, which I can only assume are prime for crockery, surfaces, and your body. Sounded like men's body wash over here. It will also wash away your dish's powers if you happen to be under some sort of kitchen-based curse. Say, do you ever get those pangs of cringe when you remember that time your voice cracked while you were asking out your crush, or you told a joke that just totally bombed and everyone looked at you weird, and you lay awake every single night, haunted by those rotten recollections? Just me? Either way, the memo fruit may be for you, allowing you to take those memories out of your head as a film reel and snip out anything undesirable, though the process is apparently painful, so use it sparingly. In what I will affectionately call the Etsy bunch, we find the wax, art, glorp, and brush fruit, nicely useful in the ability to streamline a side hustle to kickstart a small business. I will give the brush fruits points for being able to create clones of various creatures, but the hard counter of the rain stops it from landing too high of a spot. Also, please do not turn your friends and colleagues into abstract art with the art fruit. Just stick to objects. And in the vein of getting crafty is also the stitch fruit, allowing you to bind and unbind anything you'd like, including tying people to the floor or, in reality, possibly stitching up a wound or hanging things to the wall. And of course repair any torn clothing. Small uses, but it adds up, much like the Tontata themselves. While a niche use, I have a lot of trans friends, and can only imagine how helpful a tool like the Horm fruit would be in this case. And it's not even limited to changing gender. It can apparently even alter things like emotional state and bodily temperature, and as someone who in summer becomes incredibly hot and miserable, even I could get some use out of it. You can also kill people with a wink, and that's just cool. And while on the subject of things that affect others more than myself, the Pocket and Castle fruit, and yes, unfortunately, Caribou Swamp fruit, solve the ever-prevalent issue of not having pockets, though these allow you to store much more, including whole people inside you should you wish. So throw out all your bags and stuff your wallet, keys, phone, entire gaming rig, comically large spoon, and any other daily essentials deep inside your bodily orifice of choice, and if you're a castle person, chuck your pals in while you're at it. I'm also going to add an honourable mention of the Pile and Jacket fruit, which while disgusting, do allow you to sneak extra people into a cinema with you, so I suppose they fit this bunch. And hey, would you rather keep your possessions in a separate object rather than yourself? That's fine, the Scroll fruit is the one for you, allowing you to store stuff in it and pull it out at will, and even generate things drawn in them into physical being. You don't even have to carry the scrolls, instead using a telepathic link to just sort of have it float beside you, I suppose. 3 of the most iconic devil fruits in the Flower, Chop, and of course Gum fruit are all ideal in the kit of the lazy, allowing you to basically reach anything without moving. I'll say Chop has its benefits of being able to send anything anywhere, but Robin's reigns supreme as you can create clones of any body part, including your entire body, making most chores trivial. And while we're being lazy, why waste time getting dressed, or waste money buying clothes at all, when Kinemon's Garb fruit can turn any object into a one-time use outfit of your dreams. And seemingly any clothing you'd like if you just envision it. Want that new Supreme drop? Put a leaf on your head, make a wish, and go get 'em, Tiger. It is said that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and you can bet I'd love to use the Clone fruit to flatter various world leaders and other powerful figures by using their visage to do whatever I wish. All I need is one touch of Elon Musk and I'm sure you would be able to sway a lot of things in your favour, only at the cost of being Elon Musk. While the previous enslavement-based fruits ranked pretty low, I feel the Puff fruit should not meet the same fate. You become a genie lamp, and can rub yourself to summon a genie to do your bidding. Generally in One Piece this means fighting, but I'm sure it would be more than happy to do your laundry too, should you ask. And it won't act out of turn, as it will ask permission before it tries to do anything of its own accord. A handy helper indeed. Before we get to a big chunk with some shared traits, this feels like a good time to talk about Brook, and the Revive fruit more specifically. This fruit is effectively a one-up. You just get another shot at life if you die. But the character of Brook gives us some haunting hypotheticals if this were to come to the real world. Brook has long surpassed the life his body should have lived. Yes, this is because his soul couldn't make it back to his body before it decomposed, but there is nothing to prove that had he made it back while he still had skin, that decomposition wouldn't have still happened, and he'd still have wound up the bony wanderer he is today. And from research, the only ways he could re-die would either be drowning, being a devil fruit user, or complete crushing. And would drowning even work with no lungs? If you were to consume this fruit, and you outlived all those around you, much like the Rumbar pirates of Brook's life, would you have the strength of will to one day, when your life goals are met, and you feel accomplished, to find a way to voluntarily get crushed and be released, or blown up, or totally eviscerated in any other way? You can't sedate a skeleton. This has to be awake and deliberate. This is the horror of the Revive fruit. This is the fate of those that defy death. This is why you don't think too deeply about anime-based hypotheticals. You can come back to life if you die. That's pretty handy. Deep breath. Relax. Let's get back on track. Let's talk food. Something we could all do with easier access to, and luckily something a good few devil fruits have covered. The Bis, Lick, Mochi, and to a lesser extent the Butter, and Cream fruits allow you to generate their namesake to your heart's content. And while not the most nutritious selection on the planet, you could at the very least save a lot of money on desserts. Then there's the Kuk fruit, allowing you to turn any inanimate object into food, giving you a solid way to deal with anything from junk mail to unwanted furniture. And I'm going to hesitantly add the Ring fruit, as while it allows you to easily extract juice from things like fruit and whatnot, you can also do it to literally anything, including animals, which is just rancid to look at, so just don't do that, and we should be all above board. It also feels appropriate to mention the Woods fruit, which seemingly lets you create any plant you please. Wanna generate a ton of fruit-bearing trees or vegetables so you never have to get groceries again? Feel free, buddy! And hell, if you swing by Brazil at any point, feel free to bring back the Amazon while you're at it. And if you like the laziness powers I mentioned before, just send down a vine to make your coffee for you while you're at it. Coming to the top of the list, I'd like to welcome you to the Flight Zone. Not necessarily useful in every aspect of the fruit's powers, but these have been seen to grant the power of flight, which in my opinion is one of the greatest powers you could find yourself in the possession of. The string, sand, snow, soot, plume, berry, float, spin, gas, hollow, and all variants of bird fruits, and some bug and dragon fruits, all land in this spot. I am, though, going to give a special shout out to the hollow fruit user, Perona. Not because of any specific benefit this fruit gives, but because I am in love with her, that is all. But what if you could make yourself and other things fly? Well, then you'd have eaten the Press fruit, an oddly named little morsel which allows you to alter gravity's effects. This lets you float, make other things float, and lets you pull giant meteors down from the sky onto a battlefield that you are currently on. Handy if Jurassic Park ever comes to reality, what's not to love? Just outbidding these flying fruits, however, is the Oddorr fruit, which from what I can tell from proposed limitations, is basically an inbuilt portal gun that works so long as you're not tired. And as powers go, I think having to take a little breather after warping across the globe is a price I'm willing to pay. But how about portals that don't make you tired? That is where Brulee's Mirror fruit just ekes out over Bluno. This allows you to enter a pocket dimension connected by mirrors and travel between them with ease. I'm unsure if it's all mirrors ever, or just ones that the Eater has made, but either way, it's a dream come true for those with a long commute, even ignoring its combat potential. In fact, let's take it one step further with the Warp fruit, just a straight up teleport for you and anyone else you're touching upon use. It does appear to have a relatively limited range, but I'm sure with some training you could at least save yourself a drive down to the shops and back. However, I feel that for getting around, it's going to be tough to beat the Glint fruit. Faster than light travel, albeit only in a straight line, being able to light up any room you're in without the personality required, and it makes you light enough to stand on a cannonball, which is just cool. Out of all the fleet admirals, I feel that Borsellino takes the cake. But I didn't say all characters, as there is of course Dad of the Year Bartholomew Kuma. Not only can he use the Pawpaw fruit to instantly transmission himself and anything else wherever he pleases, with a demonstrably huge range, but he can also extract things like pain and tiredness from others and either take them on himself or send them into someone else. Got a paper cut? Can barely keep your eyes open at work? Just suck those feelings out and send them over to your most annoying colleague and keep on trucking. And then fly on home to your church house and have nothing bad happen to you, ever. If only. This may surprise you to hear, but a lot of what we interact with on a day-to-day basis runs on electricity. Due to this, I can think of few handier tricks to have than the Rumble fruit, Enel's fruit of choice. Not only being able to charge anything, and I assume do so quite quickly, but also have the traversal benefits of the flying fruit, and also being immune to electrocution, so you can do that DIY with hands as wet as you please. A fantastic contender without a doubt. But getting around quickly and charging your phone is only so useful. The Op fruit, however, the essential tool of my beloved Trafalgar Law, would be nothing short of miraculous. Being able to not only have the short-range teleport of the Warp fruit thanks to Shambles, but also, of course, the ability to cure any illness, perform precise surgeries, and all manner of very good doctor things is hard to place anywhere but the top. And its close cousin, the Heal fruit, does not fall far short, being capable of treating any injury with just a teardrop. Or any bodily fluid, apparently, so go crazy with whichever you prefer. And with the thought of pissing into an open wound fresh in your mind, we close out our rankings of the good, the bad, and the peculiar of One Piece's wild and wonderful powers. Of course, there are plenty of other non-fruit-based abilities across this world, but with mostly combat application, they may have to be saved for another time. Which brings me to the question, If you, and I mean real you, not you living in One Piece world, were to eat any devil fruit, which would it be and why? Was it a reason I gave, or one you thought of yourself? Maybe even a bad one you saw potential in? I'd love to hear your answers down in the comments, and why not hit subscribe while you're on the way down? It always means a lot. Thanks so much to channel members Matt H and Chloramite, and have a great rest of your day.